Hello
Hello
and
and
welcome
welcome
to
to
court.
court.
So, about 6-ish months ago now, we got invited to an event hosted by Sosteen that was happening in Chicago. Now, normally when we get invited anywhere or we go anywhere, we drive because it is cheaper. But I found flights to Chicago, round trip for 4 people for $100. And no, I'm not talking about $100 per person, like one way and then $100 back. $100 round trip for the four of us. And I said, I guess we're flying.
So this posed an interesting predicament where we needed to plan for flight in Victorian garb.
We were doing 1890s. That is not a time period we'd ever done before, and we certainly haven't traveled while doing it. And we faced a lot of interesting challenges that we thought that we would share because typically events are not held next to where you are. I mean, if they are, lucky you. But typically you're going to have to do some sort of travel. And I don't know if anyone's ever told you this,
Mm-hmm.
but like a lot of garb,
Mm-hmm.
historical garb,
Uh-huh.
was not built for like car or plane transportation.
Really?
I know, it's a,
That's actually really surprising.
it's a shocking
I know,
discovery.
shocking.
As fashion historians, I thought that we would share that tidbit of information.
So, things that we had to consider for my outfit were the child wrangling aspect. I needed to be able to move, I needed to be able to lift car seats, to lift strollers, to move things around, pick up the little person, put the little person down, just move in general a lot more than men of that time would be moving. And for Muse's outfit, we had to make sure that it was breastfeeding accessible.
I should also mention that I do not have any garments from the time period. Like I have a lobster tail bustle that I absolutely used and we made work, but I have no corsetry from that time period and it did not make any sense to make any corsetry for that time period. So we had to find a way to achieve the silhouette without making a breast friendly feeding corset that I would only use specifically for this time period in my life. As far as our youngest outfit, Spool is obviously still in diapers. So we needed to be able to change his diaper in his outfit.
This was for a picnic, and for our oldest, Thimble, we wanted to make sure that he was going to be able to run around and play and not be super worried about his outfit falling apart. So it had to be super durable and super mobile as well.
But here's the catch. I want it to do seaside. I want it pastels. I want it pretty, light, airy, flirty, loving it. We kind of span all of the 1890s. I believe from the earliest is 1893 to the latest of 1898. Um, so that was going to be a challenge in itself. And we were going to Chicago in May. So it could either be blistering hot or freezing cold. Now, we looked up many a farmer's almanac to see what it has been historically, and we bet on it being chilly, which was good because the day of the picnic it was chilly. The rest of our trip it was actually quite warm, but that day it was chilly. Thank you, Farmer's Almanac. This video was actually brought. I'm joking. If you haven't already seen our video where we show off our beautiful outfits, go check that out. But I do want to put a side by side with the fashion plates we used, with the articles that we found for the school uniforms for Thimble versus baby portraiture versus a timeline of men's clothing, all that jazz, just so you can see kind of the vibes that we were going for uh, and what we ended up doing with it.
So, looking at Muse's outfit, we wanted it to truly be like the fashion plate, but because it had to be breastfeeding accessible, we needed to make sure that it could open up to give access. So, we really used it as inspiration and not how it would have been made historically. We didn't want any pins, we didn't want anything that they would have used to keep things in place. It all had to be put where it was going to be.
So much so that I'm only wearing two pieces. I did have combinations on underneath. I also had on my lobster tail as well, just to give that more bustled look. However, I'm not wearing a shirt and then a waistcoat and then a skirt. I am wearing all of that as one piece so that it still provided modesty when I did need to feed the baby, but still gave the appearance of mimicking that fashion plate. Initially, I was just going to make a shift for spool. I mean, it's not that hard, a little baby gown. But then when we were on a trip to Memphis, I found a 1950s smocked gown. And I was like, oh, we're getting this. This is literally perfect. Because even if it was cold, because it is a 100% cotton baby gown, I knew that I could put a onesie on him underneath, which is what we ended up doing, and he would still have that feel. I did add trim to the bottom so that it would fit the style more, but there was really not a lot that needed to be done with that.
When we went on the picnic, we had a 5-year-old. And believe it or not, 5-year-olds like to run around, and he absolutely was. The entire picnic, he was running around, and the layers that he had on were coming off because he was getting so warm from all of the activity. He had a white button up shirt, he had a vest, he had a jacket, he had a hat, and the hat and jacket came off almost immediately. They were off and gone really, really quick. But we wanted to make sure that his stuff wasn't going to be falling apart. So all of the outfit is French seamed together to make sure that it had the strongest binding to keep it all together.
His pants, it's elastic.
Mhm.
Elastic at the knees, elastic at the waistband, and then we threw some long socks on him that he already had. For Dionysus's outfit, we wanted him to fit the very pastelly color palette, but still have that very structured look that menswear had at the time. So it was a delicate balance of finding items that could present themselves as being very structured, but are not going to need a ton of ironing, that are going to pack well, and are going to translate well in person because we do a lot of things on camera, but it has to look good in person.
We had to make sure that I could move around and pick up the little one. We had to make sure that I could lift the stroller and everything else that we were lifting. So I had to cut the sleeves differently than traditionally they would have been cut, which gave me more mobility in my arms.
That was actually an interesting like piece that you brought up because he initially made the jacket very much to the 18, I believe 95
Mhm.
is when his suit is set, and he was like it fits great, it looks great, it looks amazing. And our oldest was like, can I have a hug, can you pick me up? And he was like, no.
No. If I move my arms, it is literally going up to here, and I can move my arms 45 degrees. That is all I've got. So we had to change that to make it functional for what we needed.
Expeditiously. If you want to know a little bit more about how everything was constructed, I've posted that on Instagram or ask questions down below in the comments. But like, that's not really what we're here for. We're here for the traveling portion. So, how did we manage to travel with 4 people, with only 2 carry-ons, and 3 personal items? 3 personal items, while also bringing historical costume. Let me tell you, it was a challenge.
While packing, we knew that Muse's outfit was already going to take up an entire suitcase just by itself for that one outfit for the event. So that already set us up for how packing was going to be for this trip.
I was able to squeeze into that suitcase my hat, Thimble's hat, and everyone's socks. We also needed outfits for everyone, pajamas for everyone. We spent a week in Chicago, so we needed a lot of different things. So, one of the things that I knew immediately was I need those combinations because I'm not bringing underskirts, and I'm not bringing a corset cover because I'm not wearing a corset. So, I'm going to be wearing that again during the trip. That was going to become one of my outfits. I also had determined that we did not have a lot of room for socks. So the socks that we would be wearing would be socks that would make a recurrence at some point in the trip. And then all of the people not in diapers, so myself, Dionysus, and Thimble, we all had 2 pairs of jeans that we wore more than once during the trip to save space.
So we were taking a plane to get there. And believe it or not, luggage tends to go missing when you check bags on flights. So we knew that the outfits specifically created for the event that we were specifically going to Chicago for needed to be with us on the plane. They could not be out of sight. So we had to pack everything knowing that those were going to be in our carry ons.
There's also the addition of we if yes, if we lost our modern day stuff, it would really suck and we could probably get more, except we didn't have a car with us. So if we lost our regular clothes, I guess we're ordering from Amazon and hoping that it shows up in time for us to have clothes.
Or we're paying to get somewhere to go shopping, but we have to take the time and money and effort to go and do that for all of the people that lost clothes.
And I don't know if y'all have shopped for children recently, but it is impossible to find clothes sometime. I mean, we quite literally found Thimble's shoes, what, like a week before the trip? We
Mm.
had another pair. They weren't going to match, but they were dress shoes, and we just happened to find at a thrift store a pair of boat shoes, which he absolutely loves and begs every single day to wear. He's like, these are my fancy
These are the
shoes.
ones. I love these shoes.
I'm like, son,
Great. I love that for you.
son, you're going to a playground. How about we wear some sneakers? It's not a formal event.
We decided, because we weren't driving, that we were going to take public transportation for the duration of our entire trip.
Which worked out perfectly. We did that no problem. We have no problem with public transportation, and it's plentiful in Chicago, except the day of our trip, where the bus did not come. Cool, fine. We decided to take private transportation. We decided to get a lift, but that means that we're carrying a lot more with us. So my advice would be have a backup plan. Now, we had a backup plan. We had the children's car seats, all that jazz. That was totally fine. But have a backup plan ready because even in the best situations, something can happen with your transportation. It's really important while traveling to think about all of the elements of your trip. So we knew we wanted to film. And if you want to film and you're allowed to film at the event that you're going to, what are you bringing? Your camera, a small tripod? Are you bringing a drone to get shots? How are you getting these shots? Like, what are you doing? Do you want to carry a bag that only is a historical bag? We had our kids, so we had the baby's bag for phones and keys and wallets and this and that. But if you're only bringing a coin purse or you're wearing historical pockets or you're wearing a jacket, does it fit your phone? Does it fit ID? Does it fit a card of some sort, whether that's a Metro card, a debit card, a credit card? Does it fit cash? Is it going to be secure? Because it's cool to have a pocket that's so cute and it looks so cute, but like if your stuff is falling out,
Do you want to carry it as well? It's on you the whole time. And cameras, and phones, and wallets, and keys, and everything else gets heavy. We were going to a picnic, and things can change. There are a lot of moving factors that you don't have control of. You can't control the weather, and this is an outdoor event.
we also wouldn't have been able to control if there was another event happening. I mean, we didn't rent out the whole public space, and somebody else could have very well been there enjoying the public space themselves. So things could have changed. But even in a controlled setting like a hotel or a ballroom or this or that, what if it rains? You still have to walk into the building. They're not going to hold off on the ball because it's raining or it's snowing or there's sleet or whatever the case is. The show must go on.
And then you have to plan for how to deal with those things. So if it's raining and you're doing an event inside, are you getting dressed at the event as opposed to where you're staying?
Where are you going to keep your clothes during the event if you're not staying at the hotel?
If you're wearing your clothes to the event, what do you do if and when they inevitably get wet?
While these are not life-threatening things, like you are not sugar, you're not going to melt in the rain, you'll be fine. It is another thing to think about because if you have made something that is hand-dyed and you made that thing last minute, you know that dye might bleed. And so it might be a very dangerous thing to get it wet.
I think that it's also very easy to fall into this idea that you're going to have your Cinderella moment and show up to the event and everything's going to be perfect and everything's going to be lovely. But realistically, when you go in with that mindset of everything is going to be perfect and everything is going to happen exactly the way that I want it to, you set yourself up for disappointment for the event.
Speaking of your Cinderella moment and having everything done and perfect, it is of the utmost importance to finish things before you get there. And I know what you're thinking because you're like, I can finish those buttons when I get there. You know what? I'm gonna sew that zipper in when I get there. You know what?
I've got time.
I've got time.
I've got time.
I'm gonna finish that fly
Got time.
when I get there. I'm gonna reinforce that seam when I get there. And then your flight gets canceled. And then it gets delayed for 2 days. And suddenly you don't have time. Now, this didn't happen to us, but that's not an unrealistic situation. It can happen. You could also have your sewing kit confiscated by TSA. And then what? Hopefully, you're in a big city where you can rent out a sewing machine, but what if there are no sewing machines to rent even in a big city? We didn't have our own private transportation, so We could not pop down to the nearest Joann's, may they rest in peace, and buy a new sewing kit. We couldn't pop into Michael's and buy a new sewing kit. If it would have been taken, it would have been taken. And that was a very real element because I was sewn into my combinations. I wanted eyelets all down the center, and it was very pretty and it was very historically accurate. And I very much did have a tapestry needle that I laced myself into, and I literally was begging and pleading in my mind for them to not say anything about it and for it to make it through TSA. It did, but I was very nervous.
I think that all of us as creators and crafters and sewists get into this mindset that the date of the event is the due date for the project, and as long as it's done for the date, it's fine. It's not.
Here's the thing, I don't think like that. I do not. You think like that. He thinks like that. In the making of these outfits, I was like, we need to make sure they fit in the suitcases that we need with all of our clothes a week beforehand. So we made sure that we had a plan where these items were being worked on constantly, because a week out is the due date. That's when things have to be done.
And time goes fast.
Yes.
Time is very quick.
Our flight was at what, 6 something in the morning, so we left at like 3 or 4 in the morning because we're both airport dads. And what were we gonna do? Start sewing at 2 a.m. being like, oh, I'm gonna finish this up. That doesn't make any sense. So no, that's not what we did.
Our channel often talks about saving money. You know that we like to ball on a budget. And because of that, we are trying to find the best deals. We are trying to figure out ways to realistically do these things without putting ourselves out. And part of the reason we decided to go was because we found flights for this trip at the time we were looking for that were affordable.
Nearly everything that we wore on that trip was shopped from our stash. And when I say nearly everything, it was everything except for both of the kids' shoes and Spool's outfit. The trim for his outfit we already had. I believe the only thing that we did not have as far as notions was a spool of thread for your outfit. Everything else we shopped our stash for. Now granted, you have to have the stash to shop, but like, girl math, right? I have the stash, it's free. Our outfits were free. I did forget something. I did make my hat specifically for this trip, so I did have to buy the stuff for that. And then I also bought Thimble's shirt from H&M on sale. That was $6.99, and he needed a nice button-down shirt anyway, so a win was a win. Like I said, I do a lot of the planning, and that was definitely part of my job here. I used points for the hotel, and I was able to get the most value of points because I bought the points when there was a sale on points where you got double the amount for the price. So let's say I needed 100 points, I will be getting 200 points. And that greatly helped because it literally cut the cost of our hotel in half. While we did eat out, because that's kind of inevitable.
It was a vacation.
Right. We also went grocery shopping, and we had groceries delivered to our hotel room, specifically snacks that we could have throughout the day for the entirety of our vacation. We really wanted to make this video and talk about these elements because I think it's a lot of fun when you see that you've either been invited to an event or an event is coming up and there's gonna be a ball. You're like, ooh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go ahead and spend the $250 on my ticket, the $100 on my ticket. But that's not the end of the cost, and that's not the end of the planning.
If you are the type of person that does host these events or has thought about hosting these events, by letting people know that you are having an event, it allows for the accessibility for people to show up to the event. We were given enough notice to be able to do the planning, to be able to create the costumes.
To be able to save money so that we could go. I mean, people don't like talking about money, but like, it's an element, especially in this hobby, because it's not a cheap hobby. It made the event accessible. And for a lot of people, not knowing the date, oh, I'm going to have an event in December. When? What day? I need to request off from work. I do not live on a trust fund. I am not a royal monarch. I'm just kidding. I am here on this channel. But like, I just cannot take my entire court with me. Like, I need advance notice. Most people need advance notice. Having that exact date that exact location. It's something that is so small, but having those details far enough out make it more accessible to more people.
While on the topic of accessibility, we were able to bring our children to this event. They were allowed to come. And that alone, for us, is huge. Because a lot of times we can't go to these events because there's an 18 or older restriction on who can come to the event. We gave a lot of details about what it looked like logistically for us to make the costumes and get to the event. But if you have more questions, we'd love to hear from you down in the comments below. We always love hearing from our courtiers. Gotta keep you involved, gotta make sure that we hear our court and we know what's going on in our kingdom.
Until next time.